hope everyone had a good night's sleep, and we are so excited to have you here at Savoy with us for this week. We've got a busy week, and if you don't know who I am or I haven't had the chance to meet you, I'm McCrae Adair. I'm the executive director here, and I'm very honored and so pleased that you're all here. It means a lot to us. At this time, I would like to introduce our COO, Kathy Lee Eckert. She's going to give you a little overview of us and our other museums. So at this time, I'll leave it to Kathy.
Good morning. Wanted to just tell you a little bit about ourselves. Again, my name's Kathy Lee Eckert, and I'm the COO of Georgia Museums Incorporated. And Georgia Museums is the nonprofit that runs Savoy Automobile Museum, Telus Science Museum, Booth Western Art Museum, and the Bartow History Museum. So we're excited that you all are here. I'm so excited I wore my checker flag and my green flag sweater. I know, car geek, but anyway, we are excited you're here, and I just wanted to personally welcome you to Cartersville and hope that you enjoy all of our museums this week and have a great conference. So, turn it over to Bruce.
Thanks. Thank you, Kathy Lee. And so, again, I'm Bruce Patton. If I didn't get to meet you last night, I'm the curator here at Savoy. And before I introduce Pat to kind of go over and welcome everybody from the NAAM perspective, I just wanted to make sure I covered again that we do have the bus, the shuttle that is running. So if you don't have a car, we do have a shuttle that will run you, from the hotel here. We do ask if you do have a car, it'd be better if you drove your car, but we do have a shuttle if you don't have a car. So that is available. Tonight, I just wanted to mention that we are going to the Booth and Bartow History Museum, and that if you're carpooling with somebody, it'd be better if you took your cars out of the museum, because our bollards, I don't know if you noticed when you're coming in, we have bollards in the front circle. Those will go up at 5:30, so your car will be stuck here until tomorrow morning. So we would suggest that you take your car with you. Otherwise, it'll be here till the morning. So I guess if you don't need it, you could, but it's probably better if you take it with you. So another thing I wanted to mention was the restrooms. So if you didn't notice, there's restrooms. If you just go out the theater, take a left, kind of behind the red and white boat, there's restrooms there. There's also in the Great Hall, and there's a family bathroom also located just off the Great Hall in case you got to change any diapers, yeah. So, okay. Also wanted to mention, I know I mentioned it last night, but we did have to, due to weather, we changed the Thursday afternoon and Friday afternoon sessions. We just flipped them, such that we will be going to the Old Car City on Thursday because it's supposed to be sunny and 80 tomorrow, and then a high possibility of rain on Friday. So that's why we switched them. So we put in your bag kind of the new schedule. So go ahead and look at that and make sure we also change it on the Sketch app, but I know sometimes the Sketch app doesn't quite change. You have to go in and refresh it. And I even noticed after I hit refresh on there, it still didn't kind of change, but I noticed in my emails I had gotten from the Sketch app, that one actually worked. So be a little leery of that. One other thing I want to point out is if you need us, our numbers are on the back here if you didn't notice. So McCrae, Tom, and myself, our cell phone numbers are on here. If you have any trouble, give us a call. We don't mean Toby, which we talked about, if you're in jail. Just kidding. Okay, so I'm going to have Pat come up here and welcome everybody to NAAM. Again, welcome. And if you have any questions, come and find me. And if you didn't get to go to the storage building or you have other questions, come find me at lunchtime. We'll take you out to the storage building. And if you want to see any demonstrations on the Stringo and how it works, we can do that too. So Thanks.
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you all so much for being here. For those of you who I haven't met yet, I'm Pat Slabonik. I am the Executive Director of the Studebaker National Museum as well as President of NAAM. It's always wonderful to welcome you all here. You heard a little bit from me last night, but we're absolutely thrilled to be here in Georgia with the folks from the Savoy. They've done an incredible job planning this conference. It's very rare in our field or any field for an institution like this to come out of the ground and then to welcome our group here and come and see all the buzz and everything that they've been able to create and learn here. It's a wonderful opportunity for all of us, and I cannot thank our hosts enough. They've been incredibly gracious. I also have to thank the conference committee. For those of you who are always thinking about how to help make NAAM better or be more involved, I encourage you to reach out and think about the committees. We'll be changing our board over. I'm at the end of my term as president, but we do have a number of opportunities to get involved, and those we've had more people taking that opportunity than ever. So I encourage you to consider joining the conference committee and helping plan wonderful events like this in the future. This event would not be possible without our sponsors, so I have to thank them, especially Haggerty, our presenting sponsor, who helps support NAAM operations through the entire year. We're incredibly grateful that they make this organization possible so that we can serve all of our members and help you make your institutions better. This is, as we've pointed out a little bit, actually the 30th anniversary of NAAM, and that's a wonderful occasion, and this is a perfect theme for this organization. There's some people in the room who actually are some of the founding members of NAAM, and we're grateful to have them here. There's also a whole new generation of leaders who are doing wonderful things across the museum community, and this organization is poised and ready to grow in the future and help serve all of our members, and so we're thrilled about that. And here we are today working to drive enthusiasm. The theme of this conference kind of wrote itself. It's derived from the wonderful work that the Savoy is doing here in Georgia and our institutions are doing across the country. It's driving enthusiasm, engagement, figuring out ways to develop new audiences and grow supporters. And it's just wonderful how that's all tied in with some of the best things happening across the automotive community. And so without any further speak from me or delay, I think it's about time that we get the conference rolling. So we will, I think are we ahead again now? Okay, so, well, we can go ahead and we'll leave it to them and from there. But thank you, everybody, for coming, and excited to see you guys this week.
Yeah, so we're a little early. What we can do is, you can give us 5 minutes or so. We'll get the speakers set up because we have little over-the-ear microphones to put on them. So give us about 5 minutes and we can get started actually a little early. So and that's a first, right? So, all right. Okay, while they're getting the microphones on, one of the things I wanted to remind you is we do have waters in here, so feel free to have waters, but remember, don't take them into the museum. So, just like you guys have, no food or drinks around the cars. So just wanted to remind you. And I think we're just about ready. And so we have the welcoming women and girls in automobile museum world. And so I'll turn it over to Madison and Elyse so they can go ahead and get going. So thank you very much.
Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Elyse Faulkner. I'm the Director of Education and Advancement over at the Auburn Cord Duesenberg Automobile Museum.
I'm Madison. I'm the collections manager.
And today we're going to be talking a little bit about welcoming women and girls into the auto museum world, kind of from a collections utilization perspective. So we're going to kind of have a little 6 kind of parts. So if you guys haven't made friends with the people around you, I recommend that you turn around right now and shake some hands because we're going to be working in groups. Yes, you are. Unmute. There you go.
Yeah, if everybody wants to get in groups of about 5, that would be great.
So to start, we're going to have a little warm-up. We're going to talk a little bit. Madison's going to walk us through some object-based learning. And then we're going to talk a little bit about museum attendance and gender and kind of why it matters. I'm going to walk through some program examples that we've done that me and Madison have worked on. We'll talk about strategies for how to make your museum more women-friendly. And then we're going to talk about how to use your collection creatively, and then we'll wrap up with some questions. So I will turn it over to Madison.
Yeah. Awesome. So we're going to hand out some worksheets here. So like I said, if everybody wants to get into groups of 5, this worksheet is something we like to do to engage groups, to get them thinking creatively about objects, to get them thinking of all the different stories that we can tell. So we're going to hand out worksheets. You don't have to fill them out, but take them back to your museums and use them and talk amongst your groups with the answers. We're going to come around to all the groups and kind of ask you what you think, ask you some of these questions, and then we will come back together and sort of answer these together.
Yeah.
Yep. And some of the objects are automobiles, some of the objects are small artifacts, so everybody's going to get a little bit of a different one. There's 2 for you. Okay. There you go. There's 2. Can I give you guys some worksheets there? Yeah. You know what? Can I just give you a stack and you can...
So find someone who has a picture as I'm coming around. Make yourselves into groups.
Yes. Ideally.
And we've got some of these are real objects from our collection.
I'm going to give you guys some worksheets. You can hand them out. And this is a worksheet we're going to do at the end of it all. Lots of...
And I'm going to
Can I give you guys worksheets? Here's some copies for everybody. Hi, do you want one? Okay. Yes. And as you guys are starting to look at your objects, just jot down some ideas. There's no test, just what you immediately think.
So kind of the first way that I like to start when doing an object interpretation is really getting down into just describing it. What actually is it? What is it made of? Is it made of multiple types of materials? Can you guess what type of material? And then where would that kind of material come from? So really just looking at the object. What is it made of? What is it for? Just sort of write off your initial impressions.
There's some sheets if you can pass them. And this is for later. There you go. Pass that around. And these are worksheets for later. They are. This is the worksheet we're working on now, and then this one will be one for later. I'll just put it right here for you guys.
So too, as you guys are looking, what kind of inspiration, I heard one group talking about a car that had a bit of a spaceship theme, so what kind of inspiration do you see on these objects? What kind of design elements do they have?
All right, the next questions we'd like you to start thinking about is the method of construction. So how do you think that object was made? Was it handmade? Was it made by machine? What resources were required to make that object? Again, you already talked about the materials a little bit. What can you tell about the manufacturing process? Was this somebody making this that was an expert, or they're just making it for what they need in the moment? And then as far as decoration, some of you are going to have hood ornaments, so those are very clear icons. Some of you don't. So what do you notice? Is there any text or symbols, and what do they say? All right, the next kind of question I'd like you all to start moving on to is, and some of you might have already started to do that, is function, purpose, and use. Not all of you have automobiles, so what are those objects being used for? You know, also think about the object's condition. Some of you have obviously used objects, so think about that. Who may have used this object? Why? So start thinking about that.
So as you're looking at your objects, you know, who would have been using this? If you have a vehicle, you know, what kind of person would be driving this vehicle? Is it, you know, is it well preserved? Is it perhaps unrestored? And, you know, why might that choice have been made? Thinking about what's its current condition as opposed to did it probably look similar in the past? Who would have been using this object? Was this a commonplace object? Is this something that maybe everyone would have had, or is this something that maybe you had to be elite to own?
Does anybody, we're going to kind of wrap up this exercise. We hope that you'll take the worksheet back with you. We use that a lot too if we're trying to get a group to really engage, to start talking, to start discussing things. Somebody made the observation earlier too about, some people are more interested in cars and some people are more interested in specific objects. We want people to sort of make their own thoughts about these objects because they're going to pick out what's interesting to them, and it might not be necessarily what's on the text on display. So by doing this exercise, they can kind of identify those things for themselves. Does anybody want to stand up and show their object and say some of their observations? I was kind of hoping maybe the Auburn coat group would volunteer. Yes, thank you so much. That's one of our favorite objects to bring out. It's a coat that somebody would have worn on the line when they were working. It's covered in oil. It has holes in it. And if you look closely at it, I know you guys just have pictures, so you're not able to see all the details, but it's a obviously handmade coat. And the stitching of Auburn is kind of all over the place. Somebody just quickly stitched Auburn in there. And so we talk about that too. And it's really a way that people kind of start connecting with the people who worked at the company we talk about, connecting to those people on the line and the cars and so on. So I hope everybody takes this back to their museum and they use it with your own collections. The next thing I wanted to start talking about was stats. Everybody likes stats. We got all of these pretty much from Wilkin Consulting. Just as a quick overview, I'm sure you're all familiar with these, is that we tend to see that 63% of visitors to museums in the United States are female, except for our transportation museums. And so we kind of came together a few years ago and talked about, well, this is an untapped market that we would like to try to target. And so let's start looking at the other stats relating to that. We see that women comprise the majority of our email lists. So those are going to be the people who say, hey, there's an event going on at the museum on Saturday. Does everybody want to go? So thinking about that.
Thinking about who's the keeper of the family calendar. And so many of the times it's women, and not always, obviously, but so many of the times, women are the ones getting emails saying, oh, I want to take the kids to that. Oh, I want to go do that. So if you're going to be doing programs, if you're doing development, you're going to be reaching those women who are in your email list. And if you're able to engage with them, you're going to get everyone in that family.
I like to throw this stat up here. So we asked some of our volunteers and our staff members why they think women might not necessarily be coming to transportation museums. And everybody said, well, does our collection really represent women? And so, of course, from sort of an outside standpoint, a surface level looking at that object and our time period, that might not be immediately clear, which is why we like to do the object-based learning exercises to kind of get people thinking differently and deeper about objects. I also like to say, even if that's true, a couple of years ago they did a study of U.S. art museums and they found that the vast majority of their collections were male artists, but women still visit art museums more than men. So even if our collections don't necessarily represent women, which I would argue they still do, they are still going to art museums. So we kind of don't use that as our way to look at it.
Yeah, exactly. Don't pigeonhole your collection and say, oh, well, this is something that men are gearheads. men and women are gearheads. And I think everyone, the makeup of this room would totally agree with that, in that you don't want to let your collection pigeonhole you into certain stories. And that's kind of what we're going to be getting at today.
We also find, too, that it's not necessarily gender that influences your visitation to museums. It's more so the life stages that people are in at the moment. So we find that people with children are more likely to visit museums. They're more likely to be frequent visitors. They're more likely to be members. And we also find that the vast majority, more people that visit museums live within a 30-minute radius. So we said, we have this untapped market that we would like to get into. How can we produce programs that are focused on local families? And I think since collections and educations has been partnering up to do those kind of programs, we have seen an increase in the amount of women and young girls to our museum. And Elyse is going to talk a little bit more about those programs.
So I have a ton of programs we've gotten to do over the past couple of years. One we just did, Madison did Never Before Seen Artifacts, which we had a really great turnout. And we pulled out a lot of kind of fun stuff. Actually, there's someone in the audience has our first aid kit. That actually came out. So if you have that picture, you can hold it up, but it's pretty cool. And so, so talking about why do you need a first aid kit in your car? And, and this is a pretty old first aid kit. So I have a first aid kit in my car. And so, that immediate connection between, past and present. So then I also have a program, Dancing with the Cars. I have a beautiful photo right here. I have instructors from a dance collective, the Fort Wayne Dance Collective. They come out and we do a Charleston, and we learn some 1920s and 30s dance moves. And then we have it followed up with our Bootleggers Ball. So they come the week before, and this is right around Valentine's Day. So they come the week before, they learn how to dance, and then they get to show off their moves at our actual Bootleggers Ball. So that's like a really fun program, and you can kind of see I've got a really diverse audience. So I've got seniors all the way down to teens, and I open it up for anyone over age 13. Of course, our Bootleggers Ball is 21 plus, but this is a good way you can kind of get your whole family still kind of engaging. So with Girl Scouts, and I'll talk about that in more detail, I have 2 badges that we do. We have a Traveling to the Past badge and a Mechanical Engineering badge. Their Mechanical Engineering badge is actually about cars and racing, so it's a great fit for auto museums in general. And I pretty much always sell out on all of our Scout programs. And I work directly with our Scout partners. With Scouts BSA, which is Boy Scouts, that's their new name, they, as a reminder too, they also no longer only take boys, they take boys and girls. So we have an auto maintenance badge where we actually partner with NAAM, who's the National Auto and Truck Museum, and we partner with them, so they come and learn some history with us, and then we go over there and they get to work on some cars. So, and they work on both of our collections while they're here. So it's really hands-on getting to work on vehicles with them. There's a vintage jewelry making class we just debuted, and we had an art instructor, and we had a grant-funded program opportunity there. We also invited the plein air painters at Cars and Coffee, and I'll show you a picture of that. We also have a new program this year called Mini Motors, where we have preschoolers coming out for an hour. We also did Pictures with Santa, and I just had a talk on women in aviation. So Madison, you want to chat a little bit about Never Before Seen Artifacts and kind of what you picked out, to show?
Yeah. So Never Before Seen Artifacts we do about every 2 years, and we pick really interesting objects from our small artifacts or our archives, and it's usually centered around a theme. And so this past year, we sort of packed the house for that program, and it was all about artifacts that you could wear, really, artifacts that connect you to the style of the period. So really what we do is we have all these objects out, and we invite people to sort of engage with them. We ask them object-based learning, sort of leading questions to try to get them to make connections. We talk about the style of the period. We talk about how we sort of Auburn Core Duesenberg marketed lifestyles in their ads, so people really love the ads. We talk about the importation of goods, so that purse up there in the corner was made in France, and so we talk about the style in France and how it came over to America and things like that. We also showed ads of people, like clothing ads, and what they were marketing to people of the time to really try to get that human connection going with everybody. We talk about cars as a status symbol, outfits for specifically riding in cars. So we have this really fabulous fur driving coat. I'm sure you've all seen them. And we always start the conversation out with, when you get in the car in the winter, it's really cold until your heater in your car warms up. Well, our cars really didn't have heaters back then. So what did they do? They had to don these really furry coats to keep warm. And of course, that's really engaging with the kids and everybody who has the experience of driving in the winter.
And so, yeah, and sometimes this is also a really great way to leverage. Like maybe you do want to talk about cars, but you can say, hey, I've got this awesome, dress. If that's what you're interested in, if you're going to come and learn about fashion, if that's something, and then you can kind of say, well, you would be, pairing that dress with your car. You would be, picking out the car that's going to look, most luxurious. We have so many women who are owners of Auburn's, Cords, and Duesenbergs who, saw them as a fashion accessory. So looking at cars in maybe a different way. Maybe they weren't thinking about, they weren't thinking about what's under the hood. They're thinking about the design aspect. So then how can you tie those two things together and get them involved into your collection in a more broad scale? So here's my Girl Scouts Travel to the Past badge. I actually also have Fort Wayne Dance Collective come out, and we learn the Charleston, and you can see all my girls are dressed up. So we do 1900 to 1937, which is the years of the Auburn Automobile Company. So we have all the way from suffragettes. So you can see my, I think the lady in the back's got a Votes for Women banner. And so we get to dress up, and they get to perform a radio play. So we talk about the importance of radio back before we all had TV. So they get to do that. They get to learn about some Depression-era recipes. We make a yarn doll. So they really get to kind of engage a little bit in like, hey, what was this actual time period? And it's really fun too, because as they come through, I have one of my favorite moments. I had a Girl Scout who came in, and she just walked in and she literally went, "It's full of old cars." And she just, was just like, "Oh my God, this is amazing." And, and her dad just chuckled, and he was like, yeah, she had no idea what we were coming to do. And, so for Girl Scouts, sometimes, maybe they wouldn't see your collection. That's maybe not something that they would seek out on their own. But if you can engage with them through a program like this, then they can say, oh, wow, actually, I really do want to look at this stuff. Hey, this is something I'm really interested in. And so here I've got another picture of our Dancing with the Cars with our dance instructor. And so that's a really fantastic, and it's a pretty cheap program. We offer it for pretty low cost, but we have people who come back year after year and really love to do it, and it's a great way to kind of introduce, so we're talking about history, but they're getting to engage in art, so you can have that kind of, really great experience where they're, kind of using your collection in a sort of different way. So here's my Girl Scouts Mechanical Engineering badge. If you've never seen Blue Track, it is the coolest thing ever. It's a giant Matchbox car racetrack. So the girls get to build a giant racetrack. And so here I have one of my brownies, and we design clothespin cars, and then they get to race on their racetracks that they build. So that is, and it's a pretty short program. It only lasts about an hour and a half, but I always sell out, and it's a really great way to get girls in the door. So that's a fantastic way to kind of engage with younger kids. With plein air painting, this was a program we just did this past year. the Northern Indiana Plein Air Painters group reached out, and they were wanting to try something a little different. And so they came out to our Cars and Coffee event. And here they are painting vehicles. And all they were was just, they were coming out and just painting, and we let people wander around and ask them questions. And it was huge. It was so interesting. I mean, you can watch as they're painting, and I had visitors come through, and we had our Cars and Coffee guys who were like, I don't even need to see this painting, I will pay you money for it. And so, people were really excited to see, it kind of let them look at cars as art objects. So maybe, again, bringing in artists who might not otherwise have been engaged with that collection, who were able to come in and say, oh, this is great. We can kind of look at our objects in a different way. We also did pictures with Santa, so there's me and my family. So we have our Dodge photo car that we have. And here we took pictures, and so families could come, and we did it was free with the price of admission. And so for anyone who's ever tried to get pictures of Santa at the mall, oh my God, is it expensive. So this was a way that, hey, they can come to do this awesome, fun thing, and maybe they're not really someone who's going to come in and necessarily really be like, oh yeah, but we got a lot of local families who were able to pop in and be like, this is actually great. This is a way I can come in and engage with the museum, in kind of that little short bursts where they can come in and say, oh, this is a place for me. And that's really what you want to do, is bring in those families to say, this is a place where I can come and engage with my community. So I also have mini motors. I was really fortunate, and I really recommend that you rely on external partners a lot. So this is the Auburn Fire Department. And so our theme is all, different types of emergency vehicles. So we got to check out a fire truck, and there's my preschooler, and she is just happy as can be driving her fire truck. So we watched our firefighters get dressed. So we got a chance to talk about different kinds of vehicles. So that was our activity. So for this program, we have a 3-part section. So we do 20 minutes of an activity, and then we do 20 minutes of reading. So we partner with the Eckhart Public Library, which is just nearby, and they come out and read to us, and we do kind of a story time, and then there's 20 minutes of exploration, which is great, a perfect amount of time for a preschool attention span, because they can see, in 20 minutes, they can see 4 or 5 things and really, get a feel for the program, and then come back next month and see 4 or 5 different things. And so you can kind of, keep their attention without having to worry, okay, hey, I've got a bunch of preschoolers loose, because I know as we all have collections that are valuable, sometimes we want to make sure that we're engaging with that audience, but also making sure that we're, letting them be engaged so that they're able to appropriately interact with the collection. So a little bit of strategies for getting more women into the door. So I think the biggest one, and I've kind of heard whispers of this too, is really training your staff and volunteers. And I'll talk more about specific ways actually on my accessibility talk. I'll have some more specific strategies, but I really recommend that working with your volunteers, because I think for anyone who has kids, parenting in public is so hard, and a little bit of grace goes a long way. And so making sure that your volunteers, I think about all the times that I have gone into an art museum, and maybe we've all had this experience, and the security guard is over there like watching you, and you're like, okay, God, I'm not going to touch it. And, and obviously, we all want to keep our collections safe, but, I like to say that with kids, when you come into a museum, you don't have a background in how a museum works. That is what you are there to teach. And so encouraging your volunteers, don't say no, because no means I could do everything else. But if you say, this is what you do, like what I tell kids is, hey, you can get as close to this car as you want. And they're like, that sounds great. I say, just don't touch it. Right up to here. You can go all the way here, and your car is perfectly safe. And those kids are like, wow, I got this close. So, allowing your visitors to tell them what to do, especially with little kids and with families, making sure that you're able to say, hey, we can't have coffee, but here's what you can have. And thinking too critically about the rules and things that you have in place. So also things like family restrooms and nursing spaces. When we have programs, I'll talk about in our accessibility program, I open up a family restroom, a gender neutral restroom, because it can be really challenging for individuals with disabilities in order to be able to change in a restroom. Maybe you have a male individual and then a female caregiver, and how do you, hey, I can't leave this person alone, making sure everyone can feel comfortable. Also, if you have the ability to offer a nursing space, that also goes a really long way in order to make moms feel comfortable in your museum. So sometimes even just seeing that it's an option is kind of a big weight off of your mind. Right. So also talking a little bit about universal design when it comes to exhibitry, looking and thinking about if you are 2 years old and your exhibits are up here, you're gonna see nothing. If your barrier is up here and you're 2 years old, this means nothing. This is not a barrier. It's a barrier to adults. So thinking about universal design and getting down on the floor sometimes and saying, if I am 5 years old, what do I see? And what am I engaging with? Because, maybe those stanchions, they don't mean anything when you're 5, So making sure that it's clear that the way that you want your exhibits to be touched, looked at, however that is, getting down on that level, and also really observing your visitors. So walking out on the floor, sitting and just watching and taking notes, and how are people engaging can really make a big difference. And you can say, everyone's spinning it counterclockwise and not clockwise. And, so maybe I need to fix the way that we have signage. So, and then finally, really leaning on partnerships. If you are not attracting women, it's going to be really hard if you can't lean on partnerships who already have that audience. If you're not able to attract families, lean on partnerships who already have that. So working with the library already does preschool story time that's well attended and that people trust. So when the library says, hey, come join us at this program, well, those families are going to say, oh, the library is all good. So, so really being able to lean on partnerships in the community and finding different, kind of really reaching out and finding different partnerships in your community that can get a different audience than you already get. So maybe stretching outside the box a little bit.
I'll jump in real quick.
Yeah,
so we have car dusters in our museum, so they go around and they clean the cars and things. And so we were just thinking of a circumstance where we had a family with kids walk in, and our car duster goes, I just cleaned the whole showroom. And sort of the mom noticed this, and we were like, already she's having this sort of negative experience with her kids of like, should I bring my kids to this car museum? And so we talked too about how these negative experiences stand out to people more than their good experiences. So we really try to make the space seem like it's for them and that they can come anytime they want.
Yes, that's huge, is making sure that your staff and volunteers, anytime, it's like if you walk into someone's home and they're like, you would immediately be like, well, I'm going to go. And if you walk into a museum and you constantly feel like you are being surveyed, if you feel like you're being followed around, if you feel like automatically you're like, I haven't done anything, I haven't touched anything, I haven't done anything wrong, and I feel like a criminal, then you're not going to feel comfortable and you're not going to want to come back. So it's really important, and I think we all probably have that experience with our volunteers, is that we all want to protect our collections. That's obviously really important. But, being able to give your volunteers some tools to say, don't say no, say do this. That is a huge, that takes a lot of that weight off. Don't say, hey, no running. Just say, hey, could you guys walk while you're in here? We have a huge showroom, and it's like this room, and it echoes. And if I tell my kids, you can't, to make sure you're not talking too loud in here. Well, what is too loud? That doesn't mean anything. So what I say is, do you guys go to the library? Yeah? And what do you talk like when you're in a library? And they go, we talk like this. And I say, yeah, when you're in this room, we're going to talk like this. And they're like, okay, I got it. So you're telling them what to do, and you're giving them an example, and we don't have problems with it. And I would also say, too, also kind of coming back, is embracing a little bit of chaos, especially when it comes to kids. I think it's really important that sometimes kids are loud, and it means they're excited. And I think also it's very common for staff and volunteers to be like, oh my God, this is so overwhelming, this is so loud, this is so crazy. And obviously, if you're having a kid who's clearly, really, troublesome, but giving kids a little bit of grace and just being like, oh man, these guys are excited, and being like, that should amp you up. That should be absolutely what you want in your museum, is I want to have my families walk in and be talking a little bit too loud maybe because this is the best thing that they've done today. And that's what you really want. So me and Madison will talk a little bit here. We have another sheet, and Madison, did you hand this one out already?
I did hand out, so there's like a second sheet that wasn't part of the first exercise. It kind of looks like this.
It's got 4 little squares here.
You need them. It's an object we call leveraging your collection to attract different audiences. Does anybody need one? Okay, I'll come around.
So as she's passing these out, I'll kind of go through an example, and then as you guys are in a group, I'll have you guys work with your object. So this is a dress that we have in our collection. So just looking at this dress, we're looking at it, and we've already done our object-based learning, and we're thinking about what is this dress made out of? What does this dress represent? So then from that, thinking about the stories that we can tell using this dress. Do you have a question? Or you're waiting for Madison. Okay, good. So thinking about, just from this dress alone, I'm right away thinking, okay, women workers in the company, where did this dress come from? Did it come from someone who worked here? Did it come from someone who was involved? What kind of dress is this? It's clearly not probably a working dress. This is probably something you would go out on the town in. So then thinking about what kind of class of person was wearing this dress. Is this someone who's wealthy? This dress is hand beaded and embroidered. So this was something that cost perhaps a little bit of extra money. Of course, we all know this is flapper style. So talking about the history of the flapper movement, right? And then fashion and lifestyle choices in the 1920s and 30s. Art Deco. This has Art Deco elements. So how can we talk about Art Deco and as it relates to this dress, but then also how is it relating to our cars? We have, actually here at the Savoy, you guys have a beautiful Art Deco and European automobiles. And so looking at, hey, what is this dress and how is it matching these lines? How can you connect these two stories? So thinking about just right off the bat, looking at your object, what are the stories that you can tell when you're looking at that object? This one, I can think arts and crafts movement. This is hand embroidered. So talking about the importance of artistic workmanship in the 1920s and 30s and that movement. So even though this is a dress, there are many topics that this dress can help us talk about. So then, okay, we're looking back at what is our goal for a program? Are we looking to attract women and families? What's our relationship to our collection, and what are we bringing out? What do we want to talk about? And how does that relate to our mission? So we all have different mission statements. So here's ours. And we want to preserve the past and provide multi-generational audiences, educational and inspirational journey. And when I'm looking at these collection things, I'm thinking, okay, how can I bring in a multi-generational audience? Okay? How can I get people who are both young and old alike to come in and perhaps be interested in this object? Okay? How can I attract, what types of people can I attract with different types of programs just using this one collection asset? And so how can you then create whatever program it is around perhaps this or maybe multiple collection objects? So Madison, you want to talk a little bit about having them go through their exercise?
Yeah, so we would like you to take this and kind of talks amongst your group, but I'll add something before you do that. A lot of times with these programs too, I like to say that people come for the artifacts and maybe the archives, and they stay for the cars. So I can't tell you how many people come to never before seen artifacts that are like, I'm not sure this museum is for me, but I'm gonna go check out this event they're having. And then they go, oh my gosh, I've never been in here. This is great. I think I'm gonna come back with my family later. So just doing those are the types of programs that get people in the door and then they stay for the cars. This tends to be my experience of what happens. So
Absolutely.
if everybody would like to, this is sort of our wrap up, talks among your group from earlier, take that same object and try to do this. Maybe just pick one of your mission statements if there's multiple museums in your group and chat through that.
Think about what program would you maybe wrap, this with this particular artifact, what kind of program might you bring it out on? And we'll be kind of coming around and chatting with you guys, so we'll give you guys a minute to work on your project here.
Is there another? Oh, it's a gas can.
It is
Early gas can.
we were thinking, actually, said maybe kerosene for filling up the lights. And I was like,
Oh, yeah. It's an early gas can, yeah. And if somebody has been looking at their object way too long, I have other objects, so just raise your hand. I will say, too, this is one of my favorite objects. I was doing little research on it. They did 17 different versions of this, so it must have been a successful campaign. And I was trying to think about, would that actually sell oil and gas? Apparently it did. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Oh, yes. Right. Yeah. 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 It was a strangely successful campaign, I guess. No. You know what I need when I'm on the road is a pack of sewing needles. Oh, thanks.
Like, how can we work together with and do something meaningful? Oh, you have a radio station. You should do a radio. See what you started.
Yeah, perfect.
Mascots, especially kids,
Mhm.
is you know, when we get the kids, because we get a lot of school groups that come in, and like you say, they get the excitedness, and the worst thing we have is they want to run. And
Yeah.
don't run, not the best thing to do. But what we did is I went around and took pictures of the mascots, and then we made a scavenger hunt.
Oh, yeah.
So they have to go through and find what car it belongs to, write down the name of the car, you know, and give a little thing about it. So yeah, that's something. Right, it's worked well.
Oh, actually, yeah, somewhere in here, I think I do.
And you two are from Auburn,
Yeah.
down in Indiana.
Yes.
Like the Gilmore Car Museum.
Oh, okay. So you're not
Your roles there.
not far from us. What?
What are your roles there?
I'm sorry.
What is your role there?
Oh, I'm the collections manager. Yeah. The collections manager.
And then what is her?
She's director of advancement and education. So, yeah, public programs, school groups, things like that. Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Where did she go? Anybody have any questions? You got a fun one? Yeah. That one is fun. The kids really love that one too. Yeah. We compare it to like an Uber sometimes because they know what an Uber is. Right. Well, you wouldn't have your phones, so how would you? Oh, it's a big yellow. You'd probably pick it out, you know, stuff like that.
That's what my good friend.
So yes, well, the car is blankets, what kind of accessories. He was talking about, you know, what they'd be wearing. The car might be comfortable, but what they're wearing is probably not.
Ooh, yeah.
With the corsets and
those layers that's the outermost. You go in the board from that. Talking about how women were, but how the garb was very different. Maybe the late 20s, going through a period where it gotten a little bit leaner in terms of the type of things that women would wear.
Oh, thank you.
Well, and that's what, like, 'cause the problem for us is, although we're together,
Yeah, you can keep it. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I have some around here.
Like still dealing with, in some ways, like this Victorian relationship to your body. You know, there's still a lot of, you know, just like women's bodies and, you know, okay, what kind of car, like, what kind of car is ladylike to drive was a big topic of discussion. You know, this was, you know, something that was really would have gotten a lot of people thinking about. You know, we still think about that today. You know, what kind of, I mean, think about like who drives a Subaru. We all know who drives Subarus. And, you know, and what kind of based on cars. And so being able to talk about that, you know.
Do you want me to open it up for questions?
Yeah, if you want to do that.
You go ahead. All right, everybody. I'm hearing some really good conversations, ideas for partnerships, different ideas for programs you can do. That's sort of all we have for our presentation, and me and Elyse are available if you have any questions. You also have our emails if you think of something later. Thanks. Awesome. Thanks. And you're welcome to keep these or give them back. It's up to you.
Yeah, if you'd like to pass them, if you don't want to keep your artifacts, we know you totally do, though. And please feel free, if you guys ever have any questions or you just want to chat about programs, maybe you saw something that I talked about, my email's up here as well as Madison's email. So we would love to absolutely, if you guys saw anything that got you guys' gears going, we would love to have you guys chat with us. So, and we'll be hanging out at NAAM for a long time too. So feel free to come to us if you have any questions. And thank you guys so much. You were an awesome audience. I don't know if we have them distributed, but we could certainly, if you email me, I can certainly send them to you. Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. Yes. Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. I'm a big fan of, how can you reframe what could be a negative interaction into a positive one? And if you say, don't touch that, you're like, oh, I got yelled at. But if you say, hey, you can get as close as you want, just keep our hands off. Then, kids are, oh, okay, like, cool, now I know what the boundary is. And kids really, I found that when you explain a boundary in clear terms like that, kids respond and understand, and families do too. I will say actually 90% of the time when I have people who are touching cars, it's grown-ups. Kids know how to say no, what no means, but grown-ups, they're used to doing their own thing. But definitely whenever you're engaging with families, it is so critical to make sure that those interactions are positive, because it is so hard to, I think everyone feels, there's this universal, like, oh my God, my kid is being crazy and everyone's judging me, and that, for those of you who are parents, you maybe have that experience of like, oh my God, everyone is looking at me, and you're already feeling so uncomfortable, and then maybe that one thing that sends you over the top is someone says, don't touch that. And you're like, okay, I'm out of it, So, I think it's really important to, making sure that your volunteers have those tools and your staff have those tools to engage in a positive way with families, and really kind of like saying, what are some, maybe you have a kid who's like going around and really like bouncing off the walls, and you say, hey, you know what? I got a quiet space, or I have a coloring book, or I have something that you can engage with, maybe you just need 5 minutes. And, and being like, how can you help that family instead of telling them no, instead of saying like, you don't belong here, saying, here's a resource I have and you totally belong here. Giving a kid a little toy, I have a stash of, and I'll talk about this in my accessibility talk because there's so much overlap, but giving a kid a toy and saying, hey, you can walk around the museum and this is your toy and you can touch it all you want. because I'm a person who likes touching stuff. I am terrible. I want to touch every car in this museum, and I have to physically hold myself back. And when you're 5 and you don't have the function, the executive function to not touch something, you literally don't have that brain developed yet. If you say, oh, I can touch this instead, you still get that feeling that you want, and it works for everybody. So yeah, I absolutely agree. And I'll talk about some strategies at that talk later on Friday. So some more in depth. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.